On the previous terms, what we were discussing about was basic introduction to ergonomics and its scope in general. That is quite wide, requiring the knowledge from different streams as well as the application of the ergonomics. Both are quite wide areas where we have to see the scope of ergonomics. So ergonomics is not only uh, important in industries, but it is also important in our day-to-day life. The scope is quite having quite many dimensions as well as uh, the depth wherever it is required. So now we can say that ergonomics is having uh, the requirement of the knowledge of different streams or areas, as well as it has scope in everyday activities to heavy industrial activities, industrial tasks. So, what we were discussing on the previous run was considering the ergonomic interventions based on the understanding of ergonomic tasks as system. So, in ergonomics, we were going more about human machine system. Human machine system, which was surrounded by what we call environment or surrounding activity. So, in this case, ergonomics was nothing but based on system approach. When we talk about system, you could remember, as I do, that the first system we learned as a technical system was in the first year of engineering as thermodynamic system. In thermodynamic system, there were some elements which were interacting based on the heat exchange, and that was surrounded by the environment. So these were some elements or materials which were interacting among themselves and with the surrounding. There was sort of exchange of energy with the surrounding as well as within the. So systems were either open system or closed system. So this was the basic system we had learned in the beginning of the engineering, that was thermodynamic system. Thermodynamic system had the property that it tries to stabilize it, tries to move towards what is called as equilibrium. Now, when we consider ergonomics or ergonomic application or the application of system engineering, nowadays system engineering is a very uh, uh, applicable word in management as well as in tech, among the technocrats. That system approach. What it is, system approach? Basically, you have a process that you call throughput process, where you are converting something into what is called as goods and services. Either you are producing goods or you are producing services. Goods may be making machines, making tools, making equipment, making cars, making aircraft, whatever it is. Services may be like banking service, education service, consultancy service, design service. So this is all what is our we call a throughput process. So this throughput process is your conversion process where all the conversions take place. There are many surrounding influences, or you call disturbances, or you call random occurrences or random effects from the environment. Because of that, the quality of services or goods is affected, what you are planning. Here are different M's we supply, like man, machine, material, movement, money, many things. These are our what we call input. So this is our output and this is our input. We are converting them, and the whole thing is surrounded by what is called as our environment. Here in ergonomics approach, environment is not only the environment like in terms of illumination, heat or temperature or vibration or noise, but it is more than that, having some of the surrounding activities or governing rules of the land, governing rules. There may be some requirement of sustainability, etc. So there may be other systems or other machines in the surroundings. So the environment is not only limited to few factors, it is a whole environment in which the person is interacting. What is happening in throughput process? Basically, human is interacting with the machine, and machine is anything we can say. And when human is interacting with the machine, it is giving some output. Now, for the ergonomic interventions, for ergonomic interventions, we say that ergonomics is uh, not only not only checklist, it is not only what we call simply common sense, because sometimes we say that it is a common sense. So it is a common sense, but we are learning through the things, and it is far beyond common sense as well, because you require the knowledge of physiology, anatomy, engineering, physics, etc. Then third is, it is not only design. It is more than design. We have to manufacture it. We have to give some idea. We have to make the models of all this. So ergonomy is not only this. So when we apply what is called as ergonomic interventions to improve this system. So when we improve the system, we have certain generic rules, as we would keep on discussing, like checklists. This is not the only checklist which I gave you. There are n number of checklists for with respect to the different types of tasks. Then we have to go for task analysis. When we do the analysis, we have to test the validity or validity, the reliability, etc. Basically, risk assessment. So this is what we see over here as two basic tools. But when we go beyond that, we have to take the help of physiology to assess the rest period, to assess the energy expenditure, to assess the oxygen consumption, to know the brain activities for cognitive fatigues or cognitive assessment. We can go for the muscle biosignals for heart performance, etc., etc., for the design of the two task or the thing. So the first thing over here is, after system approach, from understanding the system approach of ergonomics, we are moving towards the first step is what we call task analysis. So you can assess, you can have the understanding of the task by checklist, by making certain questions, taking interviews, looking at the job. So by those things or those tools, you can understand the points of the problem or points of the opportunities where you can have scope for improvement. So as FW Taylor said that a slightest task may also have the scope of improvement. So whenever you do a task analysis, you have to consider that there is a scope of improvement. We know the very early studies of scientific management by F.W. Taylor, Gilbreth, Gant. So these were the scientists who have developed some scientific method of management, scientific method of human resource management, scientific methods based on human concerns that the load should not be always an unlimited or decided by the company. It should be depending upon the capability of the person, so that you can have low absenteeism, you can have more productivity, lesser discomfort, all those things. So we were uh, moving from what is called as scientific management to human concern of management, then system approach of ergonomics where we have human machine interaction, and then we have to go for either checklist or the task analysis. When we do the task analysis, we should keep in mind that there is scope for improvement. Come back to task analysis. In 1991, Snyder gave uh, a basic definition of task analysis, that it is an ordered sequence of tasks or subtasks. I've also pointed out earlier that task analysis requires the understanding the whole going on of the work in terms of small elements of activity. For example, it is packaging. So it may be taking the cardboard, cutting it into small pieces, wrapping up, putting the stuffs. So all these are small activities. If you remember the like Therbalix in work methods measurement. So Therbalix was nothing but dividing the task into small elements and then knowing that whether it is pick, whether it is transport, whether it is a release, grip, ungrip, inspect. So there were n number of activities, and every activity were given as a standard task time. Based on that, we used to find out the standard time, and based on the standard times, we were able to know how much productivity we can achieve or how much scope of improvement is possible in the task. So these were many ways. So what Snyder says, that an ordered sequence of tasks or subtasks which identify the performer or user, action, activities or operations, the environment is starting, the state, the goal state, the requirement of complete tasks such as hardware, software or information. So whatever task you have, it may be a roti making, it may be making a mortise lock, it may be completing your project. It may be working on the lathe machine to do the just paper turning operation. Whatever it is, if you have to improve it, if you have to look with the perspective of ergonomic interventions, you have to perform the task analysis. And in that case, you have to consider the whole task in terms of activities as well as tasks divided into small elements and then in terms of small activities. There we can take the much help from our what is called as flow chart. So flow chart is a basic technique or the flow process chart, whatever you prefer depending upon the situation. We can have much understanding of the task. Once we know the task, we can move further towards improvement. So task analysis drives human-centered design by providing a system-specific context for the application of fundamental ergonomics principles. The general procedure for carrying out the task analysis is as follows. Always we have an objective that reduce error, improve productivity, more user acceptance, more comfort, and lesser reaction time. So these are the basic parameters on which we always keep the objective of ergonomic intervention. So, in task analysis, carrying out the task analysis, first of all, identify the prototypical task by collecting detailed descriptions from the expert users of what different people do. That is also possible when you look at the task, you keep a video recording, you bring it to your computer, you watch it again and again, and then you can perform a task analysis. I have a lot of videos I can share with you. For example, buffing tasks, polishing tasks in hardware industries, packaging tasks, punching tasks of key making. So when we do look at that, in our computer again and again, or by sharing the knowledge of the expert, or by having interaction with the workers, we can understand the whole activity. Identify all the process that comprise the activity. It may be all the steps, it may be all the equipment, it may be all the tools, all the materials. You should know about it. Then analyze the description in terms of various options for action and the criteria used to select between them. So that is only possible when we interact with the supervisor, when we interact with the worker about the activities, what options do they explore in doing the task. Sometimes they might have a problem. For example, he is polishing one end of the hardware, one end of the motor is locked. Then he suddenly looks that the other end is get disturbed. So he has to change the action of polishing from top to bottom. So that way, there are many criteria in which the situation is different. Generate prototypical task specification by selecting the characteristic set of tasks and specifying the work sequence common to them. If we know this, we would be able to construct the flowchart. Who must be involved? What are the subcomponents of the activities? How are participants involved in various activities? What information is required at each stage in the task? Where does the information come from? How is the information exchanged? How might any of the above be improved? Sometimes you know that you remember the questions which you have to ask with the workers, but not always possible to remember everything. So we have a kind of checklist which reminds us about these things. After getting these information, we can have a task analysis consisting of description of behavior required to carry out the task, description of the system states that occur when the task is carried out. For example, you are hungry, you are looking for food. When you are hungry, then you search for this stuff, where it is placed, you took for the cooking range, you cook it, you prepare it, you place it in the plates, etc., and then you have it. So these are the different states of the task. Mapping the task behavior onto the system states by making a flowchart. This information can be used for many purposes. Once you have a flowchart of the activities, that flowchart can be used to evaluate the system in terms of uh, man, human, sorry, in terms of human machine interface surrounded by the environment. So we can see this as a system, as a whole system, and then we can analyze it, we can evaluate it. Identification of the skills needed by the operator for the system. What skills human requires to do that particular task must be identified, so that if there is a lack of a skill, if there is incompatibility in the skill and the machine's requirement, that may be corrected. Design of training materials and operating instructions. Although we are saying that we are fitting the job to the human, we are fitting the job to the human in ergonomics, but it is not 100% possible. We have to fit human to the job also, because human to job also. because always it is not possible, or at every step it is not possible to fit the human to the job, or fit the job to the human. You can have an adjustable chair, but adjustments in the chair are limited. So you have a limited play to adjust. Look, a person sitting in a chair, a comfortable chair, he wants to adjust the back, adjustment is available. If he wants to rotate, adjustment is available. But sometimes he wants to have a chest rest, resting hand or resting head. That's not available. So things are limited. Sometimes he wants to keep laptop in lap. May not be that option is available because he is sitting on a workstation having table and chair. So that way, always it is not possible. But our objective is to fit the job to the human capabilities, human limitations, etc. So, training materials, operating instructions must be in line. Identification of the critical elements of the task, predict or evaluate the reliability of the system. Always, if you remember the critical path method or PERT analysis, on every network chart, whatever activities we are following, for example, these are number of activities by which a project is being completed. So everywhere you can have a critical path or critical activities, which are activities those are important because they may change the total working time. Their effect is more on the process of the completion of the project. So in project, so those critical activities, critical elements, when you are splitting the task into small of elements of task. So that case, some elements of task will be very, very critical, which have the much scope of variance in time, variance of possibility of injuries, or possibility of affecting the performance. So that way, some tasks, some subtasks are very, very critical in nature. So we can identify those. This is just an example that while performing task analysis, you have some way of understanding the task. Uh, I'm coming back on this later on. First, see, this is a small activity shown in Bridger book, that if you are hungry, then either you need food or not. If you don't need food, then task is ended up. If you are hungry, yes, you will make a sandwich, you will eat it, and again we can check whether you are hungry or not. This is a small task analysis in terms of flowchart, but you can have a bigger analysis if it is a food making industry. It may be a cafeteria, it may be a cooking kitchen or something else. Then you can have different tasks divided into subtasks. This is just preparing the work area as a one subtask. So this subtask can be further analyzed in terms of activities. Begin, prepare area, prepare ingredient, make sandwich, serve sandwich, make another one. Or before preparing the ingredients, you have to go for wash hands, clean work surface, surface is cleaned. If not, get knife, get cheese grater, and go back to prepare grate. So this is only the example of sub activity. Now I'm going back to this point. The level of description in task analysis. Example, you can have assignments, understanding the assignments in the task. You can understand the segments in the task. You can understand the different subtasks. You can understand the whole operations going on in the task. For example, this is just a different way of looking at the task analysis. For example, in one pump machinery operations, inspection of the environment, equipment and machinery. This is assignment, which this line itself explains that it is an instruction. Assignment, execution of a startup procedure for pumping, monitoring of the system conditioning when running, execution of closed down procedures, general maintenance. So these are all assignments, not the activities. Then we can have segments of assignment: general inspection, safety, lighting, housekeeping, startup, filtration of fuel in reservoir tank. So these are periodic inspections of the pump, not only general inspection, we are saying periodic inspection. Then close down pump motors, then changing the filter elements. So these are small segments of assignment. Then we have task: replace broken lamp in a station, start up transfer pump, check top settings on pump retaining clamps, close down motor one, remove filter. These are some of the tasks within the activities. So this is A1 is an assignment. Within that, this is a segment, and in this segment, there is a first task. There may be more tasks in one segment. What we see here is assignment, and within that assignment, we have a segment, and within that segment, we have a task. So this is a sequence, and in that task, you might have an operation: switch off power to lighting unit to at wall switch. So this is just an example. It's not a complete task analysis, because there may be many tasks in one segment, or there may be many segments in one assignment. So there can be uh, levels of understanding, sequencing of understanding, which we can uh, go for the task analysis. Now, the next part in this is mapping of task behavior and system operations. Indication when to do the task, control objects and operations, precautions, feedback modalities, fault diagnosis, and maintenance. Now, in system analysis, when we have a kind of, sorry, throughput process, this is our conversion process where you have certain inputs, you get certain outputs, you have random fluctuations surrounded by environment. It may be a closed system, it may be open system. When we have to have closed system, what we can do is we might have a kind of feedback to it. So feedback gives us a signal by which we can make a corrections, modifications, and the system performance is improved. So there can be, yes, please. Okay. So we can have closed system or open system, and accordingly the task analysis will change. So these were two examples. Now, whenever you have done a task analysis, the assessment is important. And being engineer with the knowledge of the statistics, being engineer with the knowledge of industrial engineering, so most of you are from the background where you have uh, selected what is called as industrial engineering, may be an optional subject, or in your first semester um, also you have learned many courses on industrial engineering and probability and statistics. So these two subjects will help you to assess the risk in designing. So whenever you design something, whenever you design a system, whenever you redesign a task, it is important to find out what are the risks involved and what is the level of assessment is there. So for assessing the risk or the label, it is very important to understand certain variables, certain parameters, like robustness. The example of robustness is like you have a side mirror on the car, and when you drive, and unfortunately you are on a lane where not much space is available, and your side mirror collided with another car or with the person, it immediately goes off. its position and just stick to the door of the car or to the body of the car. The reason is that they have an emergency spring system which brings it back, and its brokerage is saved. Its break its cost is saved. So these kind of um, things are basically called as robustness in design. So there are other parameters too. This is robustness is uh, basically to provide support for unseen or um, unexpected uh, random fluctuations of the environment when any system comes in action. Now, with the knowledge of industrial engineering and probability and statistics, we have to assess the risk of the design tools. First is called validity, reliability, sensitivity, diagnosticity, and intrusiveness, acceptability, assessment of the cost. Going back to the first part, validity. Does the tool measure what it is supposed to measure? Whatever we are designing, it may be a checklist. For example, you are designing a checklist for assessing a computer workstation. So that checklist, whether it is giving you what you want to evaluate or not, you have designed a very good checklist, but the answer checklist is giving is not compatible with what is expected. For example, you have designed a checklist having certain questions. After the questions, you are ranking the stress level, and you get the stress level by calculating based on the checklist. But you ask a kind of subjective question to the operator or the worker or the person doing that particular job, that what is the level of stress level on a subjective scale. There are many scales available, and he says the reverse of that. So it means your checklist is not giving the real compatibility, real validity. So sometimes making a tool requires an assessment based on validity of it. So whatever you are doing has to be validated. Sometimes we make uh, a survey based on a particular questionnaire, and we also make a survey of the level of problem with the worker. So correlation between both the things, we are able to assess some level of validity whether it exists or not. Second is reliability. When we talk about reliability, does the tool give the same results when applied to the same problem under the same circumstances? So it is just like if you have learned what is called as precision and accuracy. This is a target disk. For example, you are throwing something. You may get one target here, second here, third here, fourth here, fifth here. Another target disk, and when a person hits, he hits hitting somewhere here. Another person who is hitting maybe here, maybe here. So what you will say here? The person, this may not be valid because it is not giving the correct. Uh, this may not be giving the correct reading, the correct value close to what you are expecting, but it is reliable. It is giving the same results. This is neither valid nor reliable. Neither valid nor reliable. This is not valid but reliable. This is valid because close to what you expect and reliable. So this is how you can understand the difference between reliability and validity. It is nothing but uh, like precision and accuracy. So so if all are close to the target, it means highly precise, highly accurate. But if they are away but close to each occurrence, then it is precise but not uh, accurate. So this is how we understand validity and reliability. Then comes sensitivity. Sensitivity is to resolve the difference between one occurrence and the other type of occurrence. So if the level of measurement is very close and it is giving the distinguishable difference in identifying uh, that disparity, it is highly sensitive or may not change over there. So if tool is able to resolve the difference of the size, it is highly sensitive. Diagnostic. If sufficient details to provide information about why one situation is different with other. If we are able to diagnose the difference, that is called diagnosticity. Intrusiveness. Can the tools be used without disrupting the process? Here I will say that that is the main reason ergonomics are in general or initial in the beginning state or initial state of task analysis or assessment, they use checklist. So checklist because they are not disturbing the whole process. But if you go for objective analysis, I told you that there are two types of assessment. One is subjective and the other is objective. So when you do the subjective assessment, you are not generally disturbing the process. But in objective assessments, you have to put sensors, you have to take out the recordings, you have to know the angular differences while doing the task, the gesture recording, gait analysis. So all those things require disturbing the process. So how much intrusive it is? Acceptability. Whether we are going to accept the procedure, it is harmless, permissions, because in most of the ergonomic research evaluation, we do require approvals of proper ethical bodies, either ethical body of the university or of the government or some organizations like ICMR, etc. We have to take the approvals so that the process of investigation is whether acceptable to the society or not. Then assessment of the cost. How much cost burden we are going to put on human resources for disruption of normal process should be reasonable. This is a very high level of fear with the industrialists or with the supervisors or with the management that they do not want the interventions of safety personnel or ergonomists because they feel that there is a lot of cost involved in it. So we have to avoid that fear. We have to overcome that fear by showing the cost analysis. I will give you some examples of cost analysis where the ergonomics intervention was done and the tool or the equipment was redesigned. And then we have achieved a significant number of uh, bucks. We have saved good amount by doing that kind of task analysis and redesigning the operations. So this was all for today.